extending a very warm welcome to our Honorable Chief Minister. He'd like to take a special session for all of us. I'd like to invite him on stage. A warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our Honorable Chief Minister, Shri N. Chandrababu Naidu Garu.
I wanted to announce the delegates one thing here. All your applications are monitored very closely. In my dashboard, there is EODB number. If you see here, you can go to dashboard. Now, 4,389 applications as on today. SLA percentage is 99.21%. Every clearance we are monitoring very closely. You can go department-wise further. If you see here, each department if you see here, Civil Supplies Department, total 1, approved 1, rejected 0, 0, even beyond SLA 0. Like that, if you can go to Energy Department, EPDCL 42, approved 42. Even if you can go further, Electrical Inspector Statutory approval for drawings 2, 2. Like this, everything will be monitored. If you can see here, Department of Environment, Forest, Science and Technology, CFE, total applications 1117, approved 1,620,023, there is rejected 13, and also reapproved 14, within SLA 81, beyond SLA 0. Everything there are service standards. On the basis of service standards, every department will be monitored. Here one advantage for everybody, once application date is finalized, if you file, nobody can change that. From then onwards, when it is going to different department, when they are clearing, all electronically we are dealing. When we are dealing electronically, nobody can change it also. Anybody will commit a mistake, that is a mistake, then we can initiate action, we can pull them up also. So this is the tracker. If you see here, total 4,761 clearances, 4,424 we are able to clear, and also 122 rejected, 83, and also within services SLA limit 216. Why I am educating all these things? I am monitoring personally as Chief Minister in my dashboard. Respective departments will monitor, concerned minister, concerned secretary. And also you need not go to any office, not necessary. Only whenever there is a problem, you can send it to 1100, immediately will come to online, we will inquire and will come back to you also. It is only you must have awareness. One more dashboard will show you. This is investment tracker. I want to establish credibility. For that, what we are doing, if you see here, department-wise and also department-wise investment, department-wise employment also. If you go through all these things, total all MOUs, MOU that is 2016 and also MOU 2017. The 2018 we are having investors meet. If you can go through further, in this categorization, G1 that is almost all grounded, G2 ready for grounded, like that all classifications G1, G2, G3, G4, Y. Up to that, they got clearances, they are going ahead. If you see here, department G1, 2,64,754 employment we are able to create. That is gone in production. Trial production, total if you see 5,210 employment we are going to create. And also if you see G3, machinery erected 19,135. Civil works commence G4. If you see there, 1,19,420. Ready for foundation stone, 2,97,146 employment. And also, if you can see further, R1, land in possession and approvals granted. In this, if you see 41,000. Even land in possession and approvals in progress. And also government land sought but not allocated. DPR to be submitted. Up to R3, it is our limit. DPR is not submitted. That we are following. Sometimes people will have MOU. At the same time, they may not come forward because of various reasons, viability, financial problems, or some other problem, or non-serious investors. All these things are there. This is if you can go to again district-wise, name-wise, if you can G1, Anantapur, Indian design exports, textile and textile-related industry, garments manufacturing. If you see there, 2,000 employment. You wanted to go further, you can go further. If you go here, all names we are putting. There is Gangadri T, electrician, male, 27 years. Ishad Ahmad, electrician. There is sweeper, tailor, all the cutting in charge, all these designations we are keeping here. Why I am saying all these things, I wanted to, people should know credibility of the government. We are not saying hearsay. Last mile we are tracking because of technology. Who has got employment? Which company? What is the progress of that company? How many people have come? How many people have gone to production? And different stages of progress we are showing there. Here same thing, we are giving one more tracker for investors. If you go to your password or investment tracker, you will know where your application is pending. Either forest clearance or building permissions or pollution control or some other department. All these things you will know. When you applied, when it has gone to him, how much time is taking, it is within SLA or beyond SLA. All these things you can know, you can correspond. So that also we are establishing. All these things I am assuring you, we wanted to keep total transparent way. Once investment you wanted to put in Andhra Pradesh, then it will become our investment. You will become government's partner. From then onwards, I am assuring you, we will track you everything, hassle-free governance, with total commitment, we will deliver services. Even in future, once in 3 months, existing industries I will take opinion. Even here, we are having one act also. This is Public Services Delivery Guarantee Act. On the basis of that, anybody will will not deliver in time, stipulated SLA time, there is a penal provision. We will collect money, we will pay for the citizen, that is investor. So that is also there. Not government money. From his pay, he has to pay that money. So they will be very careful also. So this is where we are going systematically. I am very happy. And also yesterday I have shown you. If Andhra Pradesh will benchmark as on today, we are 88th place. India is 100th place. In India we are number 1. But we wanted to move forward. That's why within our government, what are all the decisions we have to take, I already initiated. We are taking all decisions now. One is phase 1, phase 2. If I do phase 1, phase 2, I will reach 40th place internationally, globally. All these things I can complete within 9 months' time. Next year, investors meet. I am 100% confident our ranking will be below 40. Even Government of India do everything, we will be around 10 or 15. Always I wanted to benchmark the best in the world. That is how we are working. I am very happy. I want to sensitize, I want to place before you all the information so that you will have information, then you can utilize properly. Then you may not have any problems, and also you may not have any illusions also. This government is very clear. We will maintain total transparency. We want to deliver all services at most efficiently, and at the end of the day, totally electronic delivery. That is digitalization, everything on digital platform. With this, anybody is having any doubt, you can ask, or otherwise we will go to next session, because last session, after that validity section. Are you all of you are convinced? Thank you. Then any information you will seek from 1100 also, always available. Thank you one and all.
Thank you very much, our Honorable Chief Minister. He got us here especially to share with us about the investment tracker, which is an online tool to track key, large and mega investments. There's also a tracker to drill down facility for tracking employment, and no other state has such an informative and transparent system in place. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. Please remain seated. Our next plenary session starts right now. Information Technology, Panchayati Raj and Rural Development, Government of Andhra Pradesh. He'll be joining us shortly, inviting Shri R. Ramanan, Additional Secretary, Niti Aayog and Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission. We'd also like to invite Shri S. Gopalakrishnan, past President, CII, Chairman, CII Startup Council and co-founder, Infosys Limited, and Chairman, Axeler Ventures. Dipanshu Manchanda, co-founder, Zapfresh. Ben Hamilton, co-founder, Village Energy Australia. Maroline Helder, founder and CEO, Plant E Netherlands. Ankur Jain, Managing Partner, Emergent Ventures USA. Amit Narayan, founder and CEO, Autogrid Inc. USA. This session will discuss how can this universe of startups be made ever increasing, and can the ease of doing new business be a new quotient which needs to be focused upon in times to come. This session is being moderated by Shri S. Gopalakrishnan, sir. I'd request him to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon to every one of you. It's great to see that the hall, at least on the back side, is almost full. So thank you very much for staying back for, I believe, a very important session. When you look at job creation, when you look at wealth creation, I strongly believe that you need to encourage new business creation. When you look at data on how jobs are created, where jobs are created, you will find that 50 to 60% of jobs are created by small and medium enterprises. And then when you drill deeper into this data, you will find that these jobs are created in the first 5 years of operation of a new business. That is, when they begin operating till the end of 5th year. What does that mean? It means that these jobs are created by new businesses in the first 5 years of their operation. And this is one reason why we need large number of new businesses to be created. The second reason is, world over, new innovations are brought into the market by startups, because they can take risk, they get the risk funding, the venture funding, and they work with academic institutions, research institutions, and bring those innovations to the market. Later on, these companies get acquired by large enterprises, or they themselves become very large enterprises. Now, this whole process is actually accelerating. So if you look at any stock exchange today and look at companies which have become part of the index, for example, you will find that 50-60% of the companies are in their last, are set up in the last 20 years. If you look at the top 5 companies by market cap in the world today, you will find Google, Facebook, Amazon, and of course there is Apple and Microsoft. Apple and Microsoft were set up in the late 70s, but the rest of the companies are set up in the 90s or 2000. That means they're about 20-25 years old, and that's it. And Facebook and Facebook, of course, is in the last 12-13 years. I think 2004 is when Facebook was set up. So again, we need a vibrant ecosystem for startups. For this panel, we are going to focus on startups, and I have one question to ask to get the discussion going, and we will then come round and ask further questions to the panelists as a second round. And I will try to bring in the audience also if we have time available. So as you hear the speakers, please, if you have any questions, just note down. So my question to the panelists is, we are in Andhra Pradesh. There's a partnership summit which is going on for the last 2 days. And my question to the panelists is actually simple. What should Andhra Pradesh do to increase the number of startups, because I believe the numbers are important, or improve the startup ecosystem such that we can have better companies being created? So what does Andhra Pradesh need to do? Their suggestions based on their experience to increase the number of startups or improve the startup ecosystem. I will request Amit Narayan to get the discussion started. So Amit, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Once again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and visit the wonderful city here. My first time here. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and great hospitality. So I think for the last 3 days, I've been really amazed to see the entrepreneurship spirit of the government and the whole environment. And I think concluding the conference on a discussion of this is really extremely timely. So I have personally sort of benefited quite a bit in my career through my association with universities. And I think the seeds of entrepreneurship really get sowed at a very young age. And then as you sort of go through your education system, the sort of environment that you grow up in is where you start thinking about what's possible, what are the problems around yourself. And the role of a university, an education system, in my mind, plays a very defining is a very defining role in developing that thinking. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I started 2 companies. My first company was called Berkeley Design Automation. It was really based on some of the work that I was doing in my PhD thesis at Berkeley, and we had a lot of role models around us. We had my advisor who had started a couple of companies in this space, and that's where I started thinking about maybe I can do something like this as well. And eventually the advisor ended up investing in my company, and we were able to take it off the ground. We were able to leverage the connections that they had. The fact that we were coming out of the university gave us a lot of credibility. But then my second company, we sold that company, and after a while I was thinking about what to do next. And I thought that I want to try something which is going to really transform our future, which is around energy and access to cheap and reliable energy. I felt would be something foundational for our society. But I had no background in that area, so I really hadn't worked in the energy space before. I was actually doing software in semiconductor space. I again went and talked to one of my mentors, who at the time was professor at Stanford University, and he said, well, I mean, if you want to do something in this area, we are trying to set up a environment at Stanford to do some research in the grid space. Why don't you come and spend some time here, and then you'll see what you want to do. At that time, frankly, I didn't know anything about energy, and Stanford was one of the first universities in the US who had killed their power systems program in 1970s to start focusing on networking and communication and semiconductors and some of these technologies. So they were trying to start something from scratch, and they said, well, you don't know anything, we don't know anything, that's a perfect combination. Why don't you come here, we'll set up a center, you run the center, you figure out what you want to do, and then we will basically see if there is a potential for a startup. So that kind of a mindset, that's actually pretty unique, and that's not even very common in the US. I think a university like Stanford and the role that it has played in the ecosystem around to foster startups from the very early days of Hewlett-Packard to more recent companies like Google and others, they really seek out entrepreneurs, and they really push. I jokingly say that at Stanford you just have to raise your hand and say, I want to do a startup, and the whole world comes around you to make it happen. That culture that everybody is breathing about startups, everybody is either investing in a startup or trying to start a startup or is advising a startup. You have people around who are giving you advice and wisdom on how to do a startup, what mistakes not to make, is, I think, central to the ecosystem. That's why I think Silicon Valley has been so successful in continuously coming out with a stream of successful, groundbreaking, transformational startups over the years. And I think that starts at the leadership. I still remember, I was not at Stanford in those days, but when Hennessy became the president of the university, he changed the culture. I mean, the culture was already very entrepreneurial, but at that point, it was still sort of not as easy for professors to go out and start a company. So he was the first one who said that if you are a professor, instead of writing a book to get your tenure, I want you guys to go and start a company in your sabbatical year. So that is how he fostered, again, very, very unique. And I grew up on a campus, as I mentioned earlier. My father was a professor. He came back from UK after his PhD, thinking that he would start a company, but then he ended up becoming a professor at IIT, thinking that he will start a company one day. And he had to go through a lot of hurdles, even in a place like IIT Kanpur, which is probably one of the best institutions, at least at that time. It was one of the forward-looking institutions where, as a professor, you cannot start a company. If you want to start a company, it has to be in somebody else's name. And then, I mean, obviously there is an ethical issue with that. Not everybody is comfortable doing things like that. So I think those are some of the things where the leadership is good. How do you now get it into the next level? How do you get it into the bloodstreams and the DNA of these institutions to say that this is actually something which is of high value. It is something respectable. If you do this, it doesn't matter if you're successful or if the first venture is not successful. You learn, you teach the society, you can come back to the university, again, refresh yourself, give something back, is going to be critical in my opinion. I think that's probably where it all starts if you want to build a long-term sort of ecosystem or environment which fosters startups.
So thank you, Amit. An insight into the role played by an institution, an academic institution like Stanford in creating the Silicon Valley. And interesting points about how entrepreneurs are actually brought back into the university system to start a center, become entrepreneurs again. I think clearly, every state in India should probably have a few such institutions so that an ecosystem develops around these institutions. So Andhra Pradesh should look at actually creating multiple Stanfords. So next, let me request Ankur Jain, again from, he's based in the US, in the Valley, to talk about his point. Thank you.
Thank you, Krish. So just to give some context, I'm based in San Francisco, in California, and I run an early stage venture capital firm there called Emergent Ventures. And we do investments of two kinds. We invest in US startups, but we also invest in startups from India, which are targeting the global market. And we help these startups get established in the US and in international markets. Over the course of my career, I've worked with thousands of different startups. I've met with many companies. And if I look at what are the key ingredients which create more entrepreneurs or more successful entrepreneurs, I would put them under two buckets. One is what I would call professional skills. These are your execution skills about getting things done. This is about your domain expertise. This is about your ability to work in teams and manage teams. And the second is what I would call more sort of softer skill. These are your leadership skills, your skills to manage yourself, your inner management, your communication, and so many other things. Now, there are two ways you're learning these skills. One is you're learning these through your professional career, through the university, through your professional experience in the industry. And as Amit mentioned, your university and subsequently your professional experience plays a very critical role in helping build the platform for this. But despite that, once you start something new, there's more help you need, because now you are in uncharted territory. And oftentimes, as an entrepreneur, there are many things you're doing which are against conventional wisdom. And mentorship has a huge role to play in helping you navigate those waters. These are mentorship from other entrepreneurs who have walked this journey. And in any ecosystem, I've been an investor in US, in Israel, and of course also in India. I've seen the role of mentorship is critical in helping these entrepreneurs to grow and scale up. And I would encourage Andhra Pradesh, and I would love to support that in any way I can, in creating a very active atmosphere and system for mentorship. This would be entrepreneurs in the state who have been successful entrepreneurs or who've spent time as an entrepreneur, actively mentoring new entrepreneurs, and also getting entrepreneurs and investors from outside the state, from other parts of India, from other countries in the world, to actually collaborate in mentorship. This could be flying in to the cities, in Visakhapatnam, in Amravati, Tirupati, wherever needed, to spend a couple of days and spend time with entrepreneurs here. It could be over web conference, over a video conference, and work with entrepreneurs here. It is also about creating opportunities for exposure. One of my friends, Raju Indukari, he started an incubator called FalconX in the Bay Area, which is a landing pad for Indian entrepreneurs to come and base there. So resources like that. So I think the state is already doing a lot of very interesting and promising initiatives in this direction. I would love to continue to encourage that and support them in any way we can.
Thank you, Ankur. So the key point here is how do you bring mentors and mentorship to actually support and improve the entrepreneurship ecosystem that exists in Andhra Pradesh. The challenge being, do you have enough exemplars who will act as mentors? And if not, there are good suggestions about how we can bring them on a programmatic way to come to the state, even leveraging technology like video conferencing to improve the startup ecosystem, support the startups here in Andhra Pradesh. We have a panel that's quite international, and next we have Marjolein from Netherlands, actually, and unfortunately we have only one woman in our panel, so you have a responsibility actually to talk about women.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me again on this panel. What I think is really important when it comes to entrepreneurship and basically to anything you want to achieve is to have a role model that you can identify with. So when I grew up, my father was actually an entrepreneur, and sort of in the back of my head, the idea formed that that was an interesting thing to do. And since my mother was working as well, I always had the idea like that's something I can do. And then when I finally graduated from the university, I was still sort of looking what I wanted to do, and I had the feeling I wanted to start a company, but I didn't know what exactly. So I was asked to do a PhD at the university where I had just graduated. And my professor actually told me, listen, we've got this project to make electricity with living plants, and we want you to do a PhD on that project and to work on that technology. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't want to be a researcher. I want to be an entrepreneur. And then he said, well, listen, we want the startup company to be formed from this project. So why don't you do the research and start a company? Well, that sounded really appealing to me. So that's actually what I did. And thanks to my professor who kept telling me that that was something I could do, I felt strengthened and I had the courage to actually try. And by having someone who tells you that it's possible, like that helps you to find the perseverance you need and to do what others say that can't be done. Because that happens a lot when you start up a company. Like people will tell you over and over again, that can't be done. Well, let me tell you what, it can. So, because here I am, and that's like, the sky is the limit. And if you aim high and you don't reach exactly that sky, well, that's okay. Because you will reach something higher than maybe you've ever thought you could reach. And to see that others did it has always been very inspiring to me. And I haven't realized so much, like in the beginning of my career, that probably the position of women in the Netherlands is quite exceptional. So there you find a lot of women in government and in business, and so it was sort of normal to me. And I've learned over the years that that's not the same in all over the world. And I realized that having like powerful women as role models has really helped me as well. So that's what inspired me. And actually, one of my role models at this moment is the Dutch Queen. She's fantastic. She's working on microcredit, and she's always very interested in people. And just by being like the very approachable person she is, I've realized that that's the type of person I would like to be. I will never be a queen, and I don't aspire to be. But just the type of person she is and the way she inspires others has inspired me to try to be that role model to others, to young entrepreneurs who are starting their company. And I really hope that I achieve that.
Thank you, Marjolein. The importance of role models, especially women role models. definitely for Indian states.
I must say, like, everyone needs a role model to that you can recognize yourself
Sure.
in. So for women and girls, that could be other women, but it could be men as well. And
Sure.
for the male entrepreneurs, you need male role models or maybe female role models. It could be both. So.
Sure. For Indian states, I think this is, I believe, very important. Women can achieve anything they put their mind to. And so we need exemplars again, role models who have actually been there, done that, and that it's possible, and sky is the limit. Next we go all the way across to Australia, and we have Ben Hamilton.
Thank you, Krish. I thought I'd maybe just start by pointing out something quite obvious to me, and I'm probably the panel and most of you, I'm sure, is that a startup is not a small version of a big company. It's actually quite a different type of being, and generally an entrepreneur will have an idea. The idea will be unproven. It'll be a technology which has not been fully developed. It'll contain a great deal of risk. And the entrepreneur's job is to develop that idea and that business model to the point where there's enough confidence that it can attract other people's investment. And they're racing against time. They have to evolve their concept and move as quick as they possibly can before they run out of funds. So what does an entrepreneur need then in that context? Well, they need traction with customers, and they need less friction, and that probably comes to the question, which is what can happen in Andhra Pradesh to help encourage entrepreneurs. And I think it really resolves around those two areas. It's traction with customers. It's creating pathways for startups to engage with industry, creating pathways for startups to engage with the government, creating hackathons and movements and spaces that are supported by government to start to get the startup themselves engaging with the real problem and with the real customer. And when it comes to friction, that's really about removing barriers, taking away the obstacles that might prevent a startup from getting the acceleration it needs to refine its model before it runs out of cash. And government have a significant role to play when it comes to reducing friction. And one of the more important areas is trying to facilitate risk capital, because the investment in the startup at different stages of the startup is generally much higher risk, and there's a lot more exposure. So the government can facilitate that. They can facilitate that through supporting grants and supporting subsidies for funding, for places, for energy, for communications. They can create the right tax incentives, the right research and development opportunities. And they can potentially, as we move into this new world of cryptocurrencies, they can also create opportunities for initial coin offerings, which could be a really valuable source of funding for many startups. In Andhra Pradesh, a very, very high rural population. So for a startup ecosystem to create and to be successful in Andhra Pradesh is really going to require that it's a state-based perspective, and that there is significant and sufficient infrastructure to support what will largely be a very rural-based movement into this startup entrepreneurial space. So power infrastructure, comms infrastructure, I think I would just urge the Andhra Pradesh government to continue the focus in those areas, which I think leads this country and is actually necessary in this state, particularly because of its high rural population. And then my final suggestion would be in the role of corporate venturing and creating opportunity potentially where startups can emerge out of the large institutions, including the government themselves and the government corporations, and whether there are places within those organisations where startups around particular ideas can emerge and then ultimately be spun out to be taken on by entrepreneurs and into greater and more high-risk places where governments don't generally venture. So corporate venturing would be my last suggestion.
Thank you, Ben. The role of government, the role of large corporations on supporting entrepreneurs, supporting the startup ecosystem. And second point is about the infrastructure that's required in rural areas so that entrepreneurs in rural areas can participate in this opportunity. Next, we come to our own Indian entrepreneur, so Deepanshu Machanda from Delhi.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be part of this panel, and thanks CII for inviting a fellow entrepreneur to to give suggestions of boosting entrepreneurship in Andhra Pradesh. Brief background introduction about myself. I run a company called ZapFresh. We started 2.5 years back. We are basically grown 10 times year-on-year basis. We have a strength of about 150 people, and we are backed by Dabur and SIDBI, and we are growing at a very faster rate. What we do basically is we are a farm-to-fork integrated supply chain for meat, fresh meat. We do poultry, lamb, seafood. So our objective is to provide the freshest chicken or lamb, seafood at the doorstep of a consumer in India, focusing on domestic markets, and we operate out of NCR. Now, I think I have various suggestions to make. I've been an entrepreneur for some time. I have more than a decade of experience working with smaller companies, looking at areas which are challenging for a growing company, what works, what doesn't work. And I generally believe the ecosystem and the government has a very large role to play in this category. We've all seen the emergence of all the companies in technology which have taken over and leading the entire ecosystem, and there's a lot of development happened over the last decade. And so what I believe is that there is a need to work with the private players. For example, we were not aware about the grants, the support, the subsidies which are there in our category of business till the time we went out, found a lot of information on our own to see what is the support we can get. So I think just the way everything is being communicated right in other areas of the state, this category should also have transparency, further efficiencies and communication with the ecosystem. Looking at working with universities, colleges to basically make them aware of what is available for the budding entrepreneurs, what they can innovate in, and which are the sectors which government is supporting, and that's very, very crucial. And I think that's how we'll be able to, in a way, boost innovation also in those categories, which the sectors like energy, agri, food processing. So we came to know that there is 35% grant in a farm to fork model, which has been provided by Ministry of Food Processing, which is, I think, is a great thing to have. But there has to be some portal or a startup helpline which would help entrepreneurs to know and get information about getting registered quickly and understanding the various factors where the government can help or what is needed. So part of mentorship plays, which is very important. Then I think there is definitely a trend shift which is happening in the industry, and with Startup India, Make in India, all these things are very good. But what we see is that how do we make them work? How do we make an actionable exercise out of all these programs, and possibly a more rigorous steps needs to be taken to make sure that everything gets translated into action in state-wise. I'm pretty sure Andhra Pradesh government is doing their bit, and I think a more transparent approach and a measurable approach will help the community set bigger goals in the category.
Thank you, Deepanshu. And I will now request Ramanan, who is part of Niti Aayog. He runs the Atal Innovation Mission. So before Ramanan starts, let me welcome Mr. Lokesh. Please, no, please. So, I will summarize what others have said after Ramanan finishes. So Ramanan is part of that Niti Aayog, but he runs the Atal Innovation Mission, which works with states, and let him explain what their role is in actually enabling the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Thank you, Ms. Gopal Krishnan, and it's really a privilege and an opportunity to be present in this very, very momentous event. The Atal Innovation Mission, as Mr. Gopal Krishnan referred, is a national initiative by the Prime Minister to promote and set up an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship in the country. It is doing through 4 major interventions, all of which are very much applicable to Andhra Pradesh government. First and foremost, it is creating an innovative spirit and an innovative mindset in the school students across the country. So what it is doing is it is setting up thousands of Atal Tinkering Labs. These are dedicated innovation workspaces with the latest of technologies like 3D printers, robotics, IoT device, do-it-yourself kits, miniaturized electronics, augmented virtual reality, by giving a grant of 20 lakhs to every applicant school who gets it, and then they install this dedicated innovation workspace in the school. We are promoting a number of tinkering challenges. These are called Atal Tinkering Challenges, which help the students acquire a problem-solving, innovative mindset. There are already 2,500 schools selected across the country which are having Atal Tinkering Labs. I'm very happy to say that Andhra Pradesh government was very proactive in applying for these Atal Tinkering Labs, and there are 163 schools in Andhra Pradesh covering all the 13 districts of the state having Atal Tinkering Labs. Now, this will create the long-term innovation capability in the students between grade 6 to grade 12 who enter into universities. The second major intervention that the Atal Innovation Mission is doing is it is setting up world-class incubators across higher academic and engineering institutions across the country. We have already set up 20 such incubators across the country, and before the end of this year, we'll be setting 50 of them. We have 10,500 academic engineering institutions and higher institutions in the country. But we have very few incubators because startups need incubators, and incubators provide them the shelter, the support, the mentoring support, the technical support, the research lab support, and so on and so forth, which is very required to avoid the commercial valleys of death that every startup encounters. So what we are doing is we are giving up to 10 crores of grant to the successful academic institution or private sector industry or an SME company which is applying for an Atal incubator to promote their startups. Already we have an incubator set up in Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh, but we are hoping that there will be many such incubator applicants from Andhra Pradesh. The third thing we are doing is we are promoting what are known as Atal New India Challenges and Atal Grand Challenges, which will address the requirements of a state or a district or a village or the country. The Atal New India Challenges, we give a grant of up to 1 crore for challenges that are thrown in sectors relevant to a particular state or relevant to the country. The Atal grant challenges, you will have a grant of up to 30 crores for successful applicants, but these will be grant challenges thrown open to the world, not just to India, so that the best of minds across the world can address grant challenges. For example, universal drinking water, affordable housing, energy for all, waste management, and so on and so forth. Many areas have been identified along the Sustainable Development Goals where the grant challenges will be introduced. So AP government again can play a very strong role in identifying challenges which are relevant to the state, whether it be rural or whether it be social or whether it be from a commercial point of view. And finally, to make all of this ecosystem work, we are setting up a Mentor India network called Mentors for Change. This Mentor India network is a national network. Already 5,000 people, professionals, have registered to help mentor tinkering labs, to help mentor incubators, startups, and to help mentor the various challenge initiatives that we are giving. It would be great if AP government collaborates in setting up this Mentoring India network within AP through all the states and all the corporates and all the universities and startups which are already there. We are already signing a MOU today with the Andhra Pradesh Innovation Society on all these 4 fronts to boost the economic innovation and ecosystem capability in the state. And I think all of you are present here can play a very strong role in being part of one of these various initiatives. Thank you.
So thank you, Ramanan. Again, a wonderful set of ideas on, thinking about entrepreneurship right from the school. And today, where technology is, I think the age is not a limit. Either, you can't be too young to become an entrepreneur or too old to become an entrepreneur. There are examples of children as young as, 10 years old who are starting companies today. And the Tinkering Lab, I personally believe, will transform education itself from a very young age. So, Lokesh, you're known as very dynamic, so you have to now actually imagine what these people have said and answer them, because you were stuck in another meeting actually. But to help you, let me just briefly summarize and then I'll hand it over to you. The first idea was from Amit about starting academic institutions like Stanford, which has created this entire Silicon Valley. Professors are encouraged to start businesses, just like they're encouraged to publish papers, actually. So that's an ecosystem that exists within academic institutions in the Valley and in other parts of the world. So that's the first idea. The second idea was about mentorship. How do you bring mentors even from outside? How do you bring mentorship through video conferencing? So using technology. How do you create a robust system, support system for the entrepreneurs here in Andhra